Werewolf.
There, Wolf, there, castle.
Real name, Jacob Rusoff. Given name, Jack Russell. Adopted name. Occupation, unemployed. Russell lives off a trust fund set up by his mother from the sale of his father's estate. Identity, secret. Legal status, naturalized American citizen. Former aliases, none. Place of birth, Mediash, Transylvania. Marital status, single. Known relatives, Gregory Rusoff, father, deceased. Laura Russell, mother, deceased. Philip Russell, stepfather. Lissa Russell, sister. Louisa Rusoff, great-great-great-grandmother, deceased. Grigory Rusoff, great-great-great-grandfather, deceased. Group affiliation, none. Base of operations, Los Angeles, California. First appearance, Marvel Spotlight number 2. Origin. Jack Russell was the elder of 2 children sired by Gregory Rusoff, a Transylvanian baron and scholar who was turned into a werewolf when Jack was still a small child. Rusoff's ancestor Grigory first brought the supernatural curse of lycanthropy, or turning into a werewolf, upon the family when, in 1795, he tried to rescue his wife Louisa from the clutches of the vampire king Vlad Dracula. See, Dracula, and was bitten by a female werewolf. Because his children were born before he was so afflicted, Grigory Rusoff's offspring and the succeeding generations were spared the agony of turning into werewolves themselves. The curse, however, was mystically transmitted to Rusoff's descendants in latent form, awaiting a supernatural catalyst to trigger it. In the mid-1950s, such a catalyst was found when Baron Gregory Rusoff, the great-great-grandson of the first Rusoff to become afflicted, acquired a copy of The Darkhold, the tome of evil mystical knowledge originally scribed by the ancient demon Thon. See Demons, Appendix Thon. Among the many secrets of occult lore contained in the fragment Rusoff acquired was the origin of lycanthropy. The act of reading the passage on werewolves supernaturally triggered the dormant curse in Rusoff's ancestry and transformed him into a werewolf. For several months, Rusoff transformed on the 3 nights of the full moon and rampaged through the countryside, even taking lives a number of times. Rusoff sent his wife Laura to her native America with the children to safeguard them. Rusoff was eventually stalked and killed by a mob of townspeople. When Laura Rusoff learned of her husband's death, she remarried to give her children a father. The man she married coincidentally was named Russell, the Americanized version of her first husband's name. Jack Russell and his sister Lissa were raised in Los Angeles. When Jack reached the age of 18, he became afflicted with his father's curse and began to turn into a werewolf on the 3 nights of the full moon. For about 2 years, Russell ran rampant through the Los Angeles environs with the mind of a savage beast on the nights of the full moon when he did not take strong enough precautions to prevent himself from escaping confinement. Miraculously, in that time he never took a human life, although a number of the persons he encountered have been permanently scarred or crippled. Finally, the mystical extra-dimensional beings known only as the Three Who Are All granted Russell the ability to transform himself at will into the werewolf regardless of the time of month while retaining his human intellect. With this ability, Russell embarked upon a career as an occasional crime fighter, once encountering Iron Man in New York. He still had one major limitation, however. On the nights of the full moon, his human mind still regresses to that of a savage beast. To avoid tarnishing his already shaky reputation, Russell designed a virtually escape-proof cell for himself for the 3 nights of the full moon. A short while ago, Russell contacted Dr. Michael Mullis, a Los Angeles-based medical researcher, in hope that the eccentric scientist might find a way for him to retain control over himself on the nights of the full moon. Unknown to Russell, Mullis was criminally inclined, and instead of helping him, hooked Russell to an experimental machine to subvert his will. With the aid of Spider-Woman, Russell escaped Malice's clutches and put the scientist behind bars. Later, Russell found that Malice's treatments had hidden side effects. Months afterward, Russell again lost control over his transformations and even began metamorphosizing into a more wolf-like state, with longer ears and snout, a curved spine, and lupine-jointed legs. This change has since gone into remission, and Jack has slowly regained control over his transformations. Note: Jack Russell's sister, Lissa, was cured of lycanthropy soon after her first transformation at age 18 by the sorcerer named Taboo, who mystically took her curse upon himself. Height, 5 feet 10 inches. Weight, 200 pounds. Eyes, human, blue. Werewolf, red. Hair, human, red. Werewolf, brown. Powers. As a werewolf, Jack Russell possesses superhuman strength, agility, reflexes, stamina, and senses, all derived from his partly wolf-like supernatural form. He can lift, press, about 1,500 pounds and spring from a crouch about 18 feet straight into the air. His reflexes are about 2 times as quick as human. He can run at a peak speed of 35 miles per hour for up to a half hour before tiring. Russell can also use his strength at peak levels for about a half hour before his ability level becomes impaired. His senses of sight, smell, and hearing are as acute as a wolf's. He can see into the infrared portion of the spectrum, allowing him to see the heat emissions of objects or people in total darkness. He can smell the approach of other organisms within 100 feet of himself and trail the spoor of his quarry across almost any terrain. His hearing is sensitive enough to detect a sound pressure level of 3 decibels, about the sound of a heartbeat in a cave at a distance of 30 feet, whereas most human beings can only detect about 10 to 12 decibels. The werewolf's claws and teeth are particularly sharp and tough, enabling him to rend through a variety of substances, such as fabric, wood, and even soft metals and cinder block. Except during the 3 nights of the full moon, Russell retains his full human intellect as a werewolf. He is also capable of speech during the same period, although speaking is difficult, painful, and often hard to understand. Russell effects his transformation into a werewolf through a conscious act of will, usually by meditating upon the mental image of the full moon. As a supernatural creature, the werewolf is immune to conventional injury, penetration wounds, exposure, burning, drowning and suffocation, electrocution, etc. Such phenomena as these can cause him physical injury depending on their severity. However, his recovery rate is over 10 times that of a human being. When Russell transforms back to his human form, he loses this mystical immunity and recuperative power. The metal silver is necessary to weaken or kill a werewolf, due to its mystical properties of purity, which are anathema to many supernatural creatures, such as werewolves and vampires. If a werewolf is shot or stabbed and mortally wounded by a silver bullet or blade, he or she will die within minutes. It is not known whether the supernatural immunity of harm possessed by werewolves would be sufficient to protect it from such vast deployments of physical energies as those found in nuclear weapon detonation.